Greetings all, we're going to do a review of drawing with pencil. First thing, let's talk about the tools we'll be using for this review. We're going to be using 4 types of pencils. We're going to use an HB, a 2B, 4B, and a 6B shading pencil, an eraser, a sharpener, a Q-tip, a tortillon blending stump, and paper towel or tissue. What we're first going to do for the first exercise is just get used to our pencils and what they can do. So I'm going to break this up into a grid of 4. I'm going to start with the HB, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a light coating, holding the pencil shallow, just to get a light coating of gray. And from the outside borders, I'm going to put a heavier grip on my pencil and shade from dark to light towards the center of the rectangle. So I'm going to go on the left side, top, bottom, and the right. Get a feel for the pencil, seeing how much weight I need to put on the pencil to build it a little darker. Okay, we're going to move to the 2B. I'm going to do the same type of exercise. I'm going to give it a light coating off the bat. Again, I'm going to build from dark to light, using more pressure on the pencil than releasing pressure as I fade across. So releasing pressure on the paper as I do it. I want to get a nice definition there. I'm going to build a little darker with the 2B there on the outer edges to define that space. Third one is going to be the 4B. I'm going to build that up. You're going to start noticing that when you get especially the 4B, it's a little more effortless to shade because the graphite is softer as you go up from the B range. So now that I'm in a 4B, I get a softer and quicker value transition. I also get darker pretty quickly, so you do have to watch out if you have a delicate light areas. Lastly, we're going to go to the 6B, and just want to let you know this coats really quickly and darkly, so only use this towards the end of a drawing. But I do notice that in my video here, my lighting is a little off, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my lighting right now, and you're going to see more what it really would look like in front of you. It has a little less glare there. There's my shading, that's what I want. And I'm going to build. You can see the 6B is going to feel like it gets darker very effortlessly compared to the others. Okay, now on to some blending options. So we're going to start with the blending stump, that rolled up piece of paper. And if you softly go into the 6B, you'll see that it blends and smudges quite easily and softens the texture of some of the pencil lines. This is very good if you want to get rid of some of the pencil lines. Second one, we're just going to use a Q-tip. See what that does in the 4B area. It should blend it quite nicely. Muddies it up pretty good. Third one is we're just going to use a paper towel or tissue paper, and we're going to wrap that around our finger, and we're going to soften into the 2B area. We'll leave the HB alone. The eraser now, of course it erases. If you have to subtract an area out, say you were going to draw a moon in the middle of a night sky, you could put that in. I'm going to use the blending tool to soften it in to create an even duller look of that erased area. So maybe you want something there, but you just want it subtly there. Subtractive drawing, say you were going to put fences against the background, white picket fences. Well, if I erase out and then I put a drop shadow against it, it makes them 3D. So erasing out is really good in a lot of instances. Okay, after practicing a little with the pencils, now let's move on to our still life. Number one, you have to have a good resource image. So if you have still life in front of you, great. If not, a black and white reproduction of your still life is perfect. So we're going to start by building a sketch. Okay, we're going to refer back to what we've been practicing. I'm going to look at my image. I'm going to break it down into simple shapes. I started with a horizon line, and I'm going to start simple. That means I'm going to start with what I believe the shapes are that make up my objects. I'm also going to be comparing each object in my still life to the other one. That helps me with the height of something compared to something else. Notice then each pair I'm going to use to see how it connects to the pair next to it. Is one pair lower than the other? Does one touch or overlap the other next to it? So I make some sight marks to help me know where the height of something is, how wide something needs to be. I'm comparing these two pairs right now, see which one's taller. Then after doing that, I'm definitely going to start working on my details. If I'm happy with my base sketch, I'm going to start working into developing the overall true detail work of especially the outlines of these pairs. These are organic forms, so I got to make sure that my curves and my angles move and bend naturally how I see them. So you're not going to get any perfect circles here. So I'm going to really study and build my sketch, complete my sketch layout here with the correct types of details around what I based it on. So after I refine that, I'm going to clean up the sketch. It's good practice to come in and you just clean up and erase the lines that you don't need anymore from what you put in. Okay, step 3, we're going to start applying shadow and tone. This is where I would recommend use a 2B to start building the base values. So basically you want to put in some tone of gray, always referring back to your subject matter, everywhere except where highlights exist. This is a great way to start seeing the three-dimensional form come alive. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm separating my pairs and shading all the different parts of it. And you're going to see your drawing look more 3D at this point right off the bat. I'm doing like a hatch style, so I'm just shading like from one diagonal direction. There are so many ways to do this stylistically. But I'm just comparing, I'm putting in my drop shadows at the same time, just building up. I'm working from the bottom of the pair up. It's really up to you how you want to start, where you want to start. But again, I recommend a 2B to lay these values down. I think you get a good quality that way. So after you do that, step 4, we're now going to deal with the highlights, midtones, and deep shadows. Now I can step up go from the 2B to the 4B. I'm really going to start looking at where the darker values are now and start to layer and incorporate those. So I'm going to kind of move from the 2B to the 4B now, building darker values, separating the objects more convincingly. Especially right here, you're going to notice that when I start shading the second pair, it really separates itself nicely from the one I just shaded before. So it looks like it's literally behind the other pair and overlapped. Constantly evaluating, see where shadows need to move from darker to more mid-tone to lighter values. And again, paying attention to where my highlights are, where my darks need to be, where my mid-tones lie. This is where practicing fading a gradient of a dark to light shadow with pencil comes in immensely important for an artist to have handled. Again, taking a look at where the light source is, where things do get darker. For me, everything on the right of the pairs is darker than most things on the left, and on the bottom it's darker. That's where I'm going to emphasize my shadows. Again, I'm using the hatch style where it's like a lot of parallel lines to shade. It almost looks like scribbles to you, I bet, but this is all just a natural shading technique for me. And then we'll be attaching details too. Can't forget about some of your background stuff like the table this is on. Got to build that in too. Now I'm stepping up to my 6B. That's going to give me some really darker values. So this is where I want to move at the end, and I'm going to start pushing some stronger darks. Never want to use the 6B right off the bat. It's not a good move in terms of like controlling your darks. Okay, now we're going to blend. Now I'm going to use some of my blending tools. This is where the blending stump comes in handy to incorporate texture and soften values. You're going to see my highlights really come alive here by getting the glow of that in there. And again, this is rubbing it in loosely and in several directions to create and buff a soft transition of light. I would not recommend using your finger here as a blending tool because there's oils on your finger. So if you can help it, try using these tools instead, or paper towel, because your fingers can sometimes translate an inconsistent value. And in the long run, it's not a great habit to keep. So again, going on to each pair, building in values. Should see more three-dimensionality in my pairs at this point. getting the, now I'm using a little bit of paper towel to just buff some areas out to soften textures. And I will come in with my pencil. I'm not done, ever done shading until I say I am. So now I'm coming in with an eraser, pulling out highlights that I may have lost, and I can re-blend those again with my blending tools if I choose. If they feel too harsh, just developing edges, softening them in. Again, I like to I always say refer back. Keep always looking back at your resource photo or your still life in front of you. Never completely not look at it anymore. Always keep looking back, so you retain as much information as possible. I was using my Q-tip there to soften some areas too. Again, coming back with my pencil. There's some details you'll miss. I could have spent all day on this pear drawing and pulled out much more details than what I have here. But for this exercise, this is perfect to show you how to build a drawing start to finish. So that's where I am right now with it. At this point, I'm going to take a look at my background and see if I need a tone. You know, if it was a landscape, is my sky in? You want to think about something like that. And I noticed that I want to have a little deeper grayer tone on the top, almost like a cloudy sky. So I'm going to scribble in with my 6B up there loosely, do a couple layers of it, doing a couple different directions, just very loosely, never a harsh line. And then I'll take my, I have a paper towel here, I'm going to wrap it around my finger and blend that in circular motion just to kind of give it a soft buffed texture. If I feel that wasn't enough, I can just layer a little bit more of my pencil over that to deepen the value. I want to keep it pretty light against my pears. Now I'm going to buff that in. Final cleanup after that, I'm going to take a look. If there's any smudges, I'll go in with an eraser, just clean up anything that needs to be softened away, and buff that away too, so it blends in. Always look at your work, see if it's done, come back in. It might take you 10 seconds, but you might really be needed. All right, there's a completed drawing. Good luck, everybody.